Welcome to the TDWG podcast. My name is Paul Davidson.
And my name is Scott Norman.
And today we are going to be talking about projects, certain projects that we like to use inside our classrooms.
Oh, not like construction projects or?
No, not like construction projects. Not like that addition you're putting onto your house.
Oh, build back better.
So anyway, we're going to talk about some of our favorites. My personal favorite is my final, but there's not much to talk about with that. For my particular final, for both the first semester and the second semester, here's what my final project is. What'd you learn? What did you learn this past semester? That's literally all the project is.
So there's several students, a lot of students are probably listening to this and learning what their final is going to be right now.
Yeah, I actually have already told them. I have examples of the final project hanging up in the room from former students. But no, you have an option to do. You pretty much can do whatever you want on my final. But I give you certain options that are pre-approved. If you're not one of these 5 that are pre-approved, you have to talk to me first. But my pre-approved ones, of course, are write an essay, the simple one, present a speech. You can do a poster. You can do an infographic. You can do a video, or you could do a podcast.
I mean, cool people do podcasts.
They do.
That's how it works.
But I've had kids do Twitch streams before for their final. I'm pretty much open to really anything. You just have to walk me through how you're going to do the project. But what I basically ask you is, what did you learn this past semester? I ask you to look back on some assignments, pick a handful of them, talk about them in your project, and then at the end, kind of outline what your goals within English going forward will be.
So how do you construct, as you're building this so that it can scale to a bunch of different mediums, how do you construct your grading side so that if somebody comes in, I understand podcast, speech, paper, I feel like those are pretty standard. If somebody's doing a video or they're doing a poster, how does that work? How do you scale that?
I grade holistically. So I look at the thing as a whole instead of individual parts. Mm-hmm. And so a problem with traditional rubrics, you have certain sections. And so you can gamify the rubric to where you're making sure you're hitting certain spots. Yeah. Where with holistic grading, there's certain criteria that I'm looking at. I kind of give them a ballpark of here's what A-level focus will be. Here's what a B-level organization will be. But I grade it holistically. Holistic grading is basically there are 5, sometimes 6 areas that you're looking at. Those are focus, so how on topic do they stay? Organization, that's where you look at the introduction, the transitions from idea to idea in the body, and the conclusion. And then you have development, so how well did you develop your ideas? Yeah. Style, which is your own unique flair, your own unique take on it. And then, of course, correctness or conventions of standard English. And so that's where how I get past essay, speech, video, how I can grade them on the same level. The conventions or the correctness for a video will be that's different than the correctness for an essay.
Okay, so yeah, you just make it so that basically your category, I guess I should say, on the rubric is broad enough that it can flex to fit around the different mediums.
And basically they'll get a grade on each of those categories, and I'll take the average of all 5 of those grades, and that will be what they get on the overall project.
So how have you had in the past, how have you had students react to that style? Because it's different. It is very different from...
It is different. Luckily, it's not... I don't hit them with it immediately with the final. Mm-hmm. They've been brought into it over time throughout the entire semester. And so the very first time we do a big essay that requires holistic grading, they're kind of taken aback. But I also am one of those teachers that allow students to resubmit things if they want to go back and revise it after they've conferenced with me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm allowed that holistic grading approach allows me to look at what they scored. I can then reread their essay real quick and trigger, here's why they scored this, here's why they scored this, here's why they scored this, and walk them through it. So I believe through allowing them to revise, it makes the OMG, this is different, not as hard as if I didn't let them revise.
So you're saying that your summative assessment and your formative assessments are in line so that they're not shocked by the different style? You don't all of a sudden give them a standardized test at the end? Sorry.
Well, technically, I do give them a standardized test at the end if you're a sophomore because you have to take the English 2 EOC. Yeah. And that's beyond my control. That's legally, I have to let you take that test. But yes, if it was up to me, then yes, that would not have to be the case.
Yeah, that was a slight dig for those of you who are unaware at just the idea of standardized testing.
I say, if you want to know what our opinion on standardized testing is, you can read between the lines and just figure it out from right there.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess later you're going to tell me about a different, more specific project, but
that you specifically requested me to explain to you.
Yes, and then we said, wait, explain it on a podcast.
Yes. But no, we originally went into this saying what our favorite projects are. The final was always my favorite project because that allows me to see what the kids pulled away from the semester, what the kids thought was the most important, what the kids actually learned, and that both allows them to be metacognitive, allow them to see their own process, and allow them to see their own learning, but also allows me to see, oh, I didn't do this that well. Mm-hmm. Oh, I need to improve on this. Oh, this worked, this didn't. So it's a two-hand. It actually helps me out along with helping them out.
So, final question on this one, just because now I've had the thought. Do you have a list of like how many specific things they do have to discuss? Because you said like you'll have like a handful of.
I recommend before the week before finals, so that and for this week it will be this year it will be half a week. So starting on Wednesday, I tell them they have to go back in the semester and reflect on 3 assignments. Mm-hmm. They have to go and look at 3 different assignments and write a short little reflection over those. And I highly recommend they use those in their project, but if they want to use more than 3, they're more than welcome to help support their argument that they're trying to make and to help to show what they learned. But at least there's homework assignments that have helped build them towards what they need to do for the final.
Okay. I was just asking because my question that I asked that previous to was going to be, have you ever had a student who just turned in like a really slickly produced video where there's like this amazing intro and it pans to them and they're like sitting there, like Dr. Phil style,
no.
And then they just say, I learned nothing. And then the video ends.
No, I've never had a video like that. I have had students say that they haven't learned anything, which is fine, but they do have to still like have concrete evidence that they didn't learn anything and help prove. So basically like, okay, well, we did this thing, but I already knew that because X. But yes, but to answer your full question, if I was to evaluate what you just talked about on a holistic scale, I would probably give them an A on style and correctness. So that would help bump up their grade. Development would probably be an F because they didn't provide anything to back it up. Focus would be the difficult one. I'd probably either go a D or a C. Be like, yep, at least you told me what you thought. And then organization depends on how the conclusion of the essay or of the video went. But since you really didn't transition from idea to idea, I guess I'd be stuck with probably a C. So I gave you...
You gave me 2 A's, 2 C's, and an F.
And here's what your grade will be. So I'm going to give you 2 A's, 2 C's, and an F. 2 C's, and the F, because you had no development, I'm just going to give you a 0, actually, a Z. So you ended up getting a 65 on that.
Wait a minute. Did you just do that like A to Z? Like Z is 26?
No, Z is 0.
So it's 0.
Yeah, Z is a 0. It's A, B, C, D, F, Z.
Okay.
Yeah. But you didn't have any development, so you got 0. So you would have ended up getting a 65 because you had the slickness, but you had no content.
I gotcha.
So
don't get any ideas, students.
If you want a D,
I was gonna say
more power to you.
There's some kid that's out there like, but I passed though.
That one specific student is not a student of mine right now. So
yeah.
Anyway,
right.
So but that's my favorite project. Mr. Norman, what is your favorite project?
Okay, so by far my favorite project that we do every year is I haven't come up with a cool name for it, but it's the bill project, the bill making project. And what we do is literally go through the entire process from the inception of the idea to the signing by the quote-unquote president or governor of a bill becoming law. And it began far less glorious than that, in that I was like, how can I get them to understand the process that a bill has to go through? Because, like, if you just watch, I'm just a bill, you get a little piece of it. It's like, oh, yeah, I die in committee. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, right? There's all these things that are just kind of like little pieces of the puzzle, but I don't think they ever really were grasping this is actually the long, arduous process that has to happen.
I'm not going to lie, whatever you were telling me, I need a formal name for this thing. I was thinking, how could we do the I'm a bill sitting here on Capitol Hill type of thing for the project name? But basically what you're talking about is traditionally like social studies teachers would just show the Schoolhouse Rock song and be like, that's enough. So what you wanted to do was take it from a DOK level 1 where you're just remembering or parroting back what the song sang and actually putting the students in the real world example, putting them boots on the ground, hands in the dirt, getting down with the nitty gritty of how to make a bill.
Correct. And so the first iteration of that was I had them pick a bill and then research it and see like how it had done, what step of the process it's on, all that kind of stuff. Because that at least gets them the steps of the process. Because they can mark out, okay, it's in committee right now. It has been passed on to the House floor, whatever. But
so
then
you took it from a DOK level 1, the knowledge base, and now you're moving it up to mid-level thinking, which was taking that process and applying it to an actual bill.
Yeah, and the issue that I found there was like it was a very weak 2.5 on the DOK scale, right? It was like I kind of care about this, but not really. I'm going to check the minimal boxes.
There's a reason why application is beneath analysis on the mid-level thinking. Right?
Exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's just like, it's not quite getting there because you have some kid who turns it in and like, talk about, gamifies a rubric, right? They hit the basics, but if you ask them any further depth about it, they have no idea and they don't care, right? And then you get the one passionate kid that gets it. But it's difficult to really get everyone engaged in that.
Regardless, it was a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it was moving.
It moved it beyond to just kids watching a video and then just moving on to some kids getting engaged while others were still disengaged.
Yes, and so I was like, okay, well, what can we do? Well, what if I actually just have them create a bill? So I did, and I don't remember exactly, because I've been doing this project for a while now, exactly what step in the process this became a little bit more final. But initially it was just like, okay, you write a bill, there you go, we're going to talk about the bill, and then you're still doing the paper like as a separate thing. And then I was like, merge them. And so at this point, here's how the project works, with a lot of tweaks that have occurred over time.
So that was the evolution. Now we're at here's the Bulbasaur, here's the Venusaur of the evolution of the bill process.
Does the Venusaur have guns anymore?
That's a Blastoise.
Oh, sorry. Don't go back and watch the Pokemon episode. If you want to know my knowledge, just look up TDWG Pokemon. Anyway, so stairs.
Your mom.
Yeah, your mom. Anyway, sorry. Go back to that episode. It's a great one. But the project now is by far my favorite. And here's how it works. They start off, to begin the project, they come up with 3 ideas for a bill. And those 3 ideas for a bill are, one has to be either a state level or federal level idea, something that they would have to actually go into the state house or into Congress. The second idea has to be a local government. So it could be municipal or it could be county. Either way, it's something where they'd have to go either to the mayor and the city council, or they would have to go to the county commissioners and get that thing passed. And then the final category, which is usually the most popular, is a school level bill. That could be district-wide, it could be building-wide, or it could be just a change in my classroom that they want done. And so they have to come up with 3 ideas. I got really crappy ideas the first year I did it. But if their idea is good enough, their idea is then going to be picked of those 3 to become a formal bill. So what I do is we read off their ideas and I put them in groups that I call committees, and they kind of help each other narrow it down. And then
like a real committee does.
Yes. And then I formalize the committees once they've selected one topic. So what we'll do is we'll actually read the bill one time to the entire class, and then, because they'll have written one at this point, and I actually use the format that is used for the Missouri General Assembly. Like, this is the format officially your bill must follow to be introduced on the floor of the House. And so they write it in that format, I read it, and then it is directed to a committee that is topical, which is real life. That's how it will work. We organize them into these topical committees, and then the committee has the option of doing one of three things. Passing that bill as is, and I tell them, if you're passing that bill as is, it must be the best thing to have ever walked the face of this earth, right? It just has to be a perfect bill for you to not modify it at all. Option number 2 is that committee will then amend the bill. In other words, basically they're saying, hey, your section 4 sucks, but everything else is a great idea and we want it to happen, so we're going to help you fix it so that it has a shot of passing. And then option 3 is, this bill is an absolute train wreck, kill it with fire, right? And so they just go ahead and vote on it and fail the bill. Even the students whose bills fail, their main grade comes out. Now, there are discussion and participation grades that go along with this, but their main grade goes on with me looking through that bill and seeing, first off, if it's a valid idea. Secondly, if it follows the conventions of the actual bill writing process. And 3, if they have backed it up with enough that it has a shot, right?
So, I'm going to put a pause right here. So,
yes.
Each group or committee has a bill. So
they each have their own. So each one has 4 bills.
They have 4 bills, but so they each have 4 bills. They have a local one, a state one, and then a classroom one.
Okay, so I've probably gotten everyone lost. All right, so each person starts out with 3 ideas.
Okay.
That is narrowed down to 1 bill per person.
So everybody gets 1 bill.
Correct.
So whenever you go into your committee, you have 4 bills that you could work with.
Correct.
Okay.
And so each of those, now that committee could fail all 4 or pass all 4 or somewhere in between.
So each committee, when they get up to present the bills, are presenting 4 bills?
They're not presenting them unless they pass. Unless they choose to put it forward onto the House floor.
So everybody in the committee needs to agree that we're going to put this on the House.
Yeah, or a majority of them, 3 out of 4.
Okay.
Have to agree.
What if you have a group that does not vote for any of them?
Sucks to suck.
Okay.
Welcome to politics. And so that happens. I've had committees that pass none. I've had committees that pass all of them, and then they are resoundingly torn to shreds when they're introduced to the actual House floor, which is the whole class at the same time, and just all of them fail miserably because that committee did a poor job of critiquing their own bills. So that's the next step, is after the committee. If the committee says you're good enough, then I will read it out to the entire class, and then we actually follow the proper rules of order, where I will cede the floor to representatives who wish to speak, and they can either motion to vote, they can motion to amend, or they can just simply state their opinion on the bill. And it's amazing how much kids will get into this and genuinely be passionately speaking on these bills. And the whole reason that I keep building towards, the whole reason that this activity works so well is because if your bill makes it through the whole process, which is being debated in the House, which is your classroom, and then the Senate, which is the other government class, if it makes it and is voted yes in both houses, I will help you get it to the people who actually could make that change. So for our school, all of the bills that pass both houses I print them off and I take them with no.
All right, I'm gonna put a pin in this right now.
Okay.
All right. The question I have, because we've gotten past the part where you can amend the bill, where you try to fix the bill. Mm-hmm. So if you have a group that has none of their bills pass and cannot be amended, what do they do during the amending process?
They are still actively amending other people's bills. So
they're helping other
correct.
people with theirs.
Yes, they are now in on the discussion, everyone together, and now how you get a grade from this portion is that you are actively participating in that process in giving good ideas, doing those things, right? So the
formal project grade. stops at the General Assembly floor.
Yes, however, I will grade the final result.
Okay, but even if you don't get to a final result, darn it,
Class ended.
no, lunch is over. But so even if you don't get your bill, even if you don't get your bill passed to the bigger part, or
Correct.
even you will still, whatever you had right there is the big grade, and then like other people have a chance to get in theirs even better.
Sort of. So you can continue to adapt your bill. Like
So you can continue to revise yours.
correct. You
after
can
it
continue
died.
to
Okay.
revise your bill even after it dies, and I will personally tell them, here's why your bill died, right?
So you'll provide them specific feedback on how to
Yes,
improve
and
the
here's
bill.
how to fix your bill. And so they'll get a lot of that feedback before it ever even gets to me talking to them.
So basically, you get a first draft as you move into a second draft.
Yes. And in reality, you get that first draft, you get the committee draft, you get the House floor draft, you get the Mr. Norman
Okay.
after yours die. There's a bunch of
So
revision.
you get a lot of peer review. Now,
Yes.
so now we're at the executive branch. So what do you do whenever you're doing the executive branch?
All right. So it ends up literally on the desk of our principal here. So when Coach Branscombe gets these things, he does a great job, and Bullock before him as well, of reading over them and giving them a legitimate shot. Does this actually make sense? Is this something I could take to the school board and actually pitch the idea? And reading over it, and then comes into class and announces to each class, here are the bills I have signed and why, and here are the bills that I have vetoed and why. And if it's vetoed, it's vetoed. It's gone. It's dead. If it is signed, then he will actually pitch it to the school board in the coming summer. So what's really amazing and what really drives engagement on it is the fact that at this point, we have somewhere between 5 and 10 bills that have made it and changed things around Portageville or around the school itself. We are sitting in one of them right now. We are currently recording in the senior lounge area, which was part of a bill that was created a few years ago to allow seniors a little bit more privileges in a study skills hour and some things like that. And there's a number of these bills that have passed and changed things. Students are allowed to be on their phones at lunch now. That came from a bill, and it was a very well-written bill. Off-campus lunch for seniors came from a bill that was written and went through the process. There's a basketball court being built in town.
That was not from the school.
It was
that you had to go through the park committee.
Yes,
to get
that
that
was
was the next step I was going to ask. Like, even if it's not at the school, you'll contact the county commissioners. You'll contact the
Correct.
state representative in order to see the next steps in order to get this passed.
Yes, and I'll give them the option. So once it makes it through the process, if it's not a school bill, then I say, okay, it's up to you. Do you want to pursue this? And if they say yes, then I will make sure that it gets into the hands of the representative, or if it's local government. In this case, it was the park board, and it just so happens we've got a couple teachers on the park board. So I was like, here you go, and handed them the...
I believe our number one sub is also on the park board.
Yes, so we have 3 very close connections to the park. I think he leads the park board.
Good for him.
But the deal is that, we were able to make that connection, and now they're, instead of making tennis courts just tennis courts, one's going to be a basketball court, and that's because of a bill that we passed. I've had several from the early years of this project that made it through and were not great, and the student recognized that and said, I am not pursuing this further. But as they've gone on, they've gotten better and better and better because students see that this project can actually change something. And that's what I love about it.
They see learning in the real world. You're transferring content material to real world stuff.
Yeah, there it goes again.
We're tardy.
Yeah, now we're tardy. Hope they don't catch us. But yeah, I think that what really makes this thing amazing as a project is that because there is a chance to change things, you'll have students, and I've had students several times who literally want nothing to do with work, who will just absolutely work their butts off to do a good job on this bill because they want to change something. And so I've had a student like that literally, is a lump on a log up to the project. Nothing I do can get this kid engaged. And all of a sudden it's like, wait, you're telling me I could have my phone at lunch? Like, I'm going to write this bill, and I'm going to write it good, you know? So that's by far my favorite project that I do, and really the best one that shows the kids exactly what I want them to know, which is the entire process. Like, you said, well, what if they don't get it passed? This year we had a student who voted no on every single bill that came up because his died in committee. So once his died, he was like...
That's very real-world politics.
Yeah,
there.
he was just like, forget it. If you guys don't want my bill to happen, none of yours will happen. So,
all right. I don't think we're going to have enough time to talk about my poetry one-pagers, which that can be a lesson. That could be a podcast episode to itself. But I want to finish it up here, and you kind of already ventured into that, but why do we teachers love these projects? Why do we love projects?
We're lazy.
It's a little bit of that. Projects are a little bit... If the project puts a lot more of the learning on the student, a lot more of the weight of learning towards the student and less on the teacher. Because whenever you've been in classrooms where sometimes it's a teacher heavy focused lesson where the teacher's doing the majority of the stuff, where you really want it about 50-50, allowing to do projects, the teacher's still involved. I'm still able to guide people and kind of explain to them how to go about the project and what to look at and what to think about. But it's not necessarily me giving them content and them regurgitating it back to me. It's more, here's some content, let's play with it. And that's what projects do, is it allows the students to actually play with the ideas that we're wanting them to interact with.
Yeah, and I'm obviously speaking, facetiously when I say it's because we're lazy. Because actually, in order to have a good project, it takes a lot of work. There are a lot of things with the grading of all of these bills and with the shepherding the process along.
The reason why I would call it lazy is because even though it does still require grading, I find grading projects a lot easier compared to grading just your regular run-of-the-mill assignment, because there's a little bit more interesting dynamics, interesting ways of looking at things than just here's the 38th paper over The Great Gatsby talking about greed for the 17th time. So it allows there to be a little bit more nuance and a little bit more unique takes on the bigger picture.
Yeah, so it's more entertaining for us, and therefore
makes it
feels better. Yes, feels better to grade,
and also it's better for y'all. It actually makes y'all work.
Yeah, and I think if a project is done well, right? There's busy work projects, and I don't think either of the ones we talked about are busy work projects. But the busy work project is done wrong, where it's just here's a stack of packets. Do the stack of packets. I'm going to call it a project so that I don't have to call it busy work, right? But how these are different is it's forcing you all as the students to work through this stuff and not just regurgitate. Wait till you get to Davidson's class if you haven't had. He'll vomit sometime about cupcakes.
Paraphrasing.
It's coming, paraphrasing. But you're not just parroting, but you're actually applying and you're learning to where when kids get to the end of this, I've had so many kids be like Congress, this is actually how this is miserable, and I'm like. Yes. This is what I'm trying to get you to learn is if you really want to change something in the political world, it's going to take a whole lot of capital. In more ways than one. But it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take you working potentially for years and years, and you might still have the head of some committee who's ticked off about something else and just no.
And on the flip side, with my particular project, it is metacognitive. I've seen students that
That's
have
a fun word.
Yeah, that have in their project say, I procrastinated and was lazy and waited till the last minute on a lot of these assignments, and here's the grade I got on it. And at the end, they said, well, I guess next semester I'm not gonna try to procrastinate. And guess what? The next semester, they were a little bit more due diligent on getting stuff turned in on time and not waiting till the last minute. And all of a sudden, their grade improved. I've seen all kinds of students improve based on just kind of looking at their past semester and saying, here's what I learned and here's why I learned it and how I learned it. And that allowed them to be better students come the next semester.
I really think that in an English and a social studies classroom, projects like these two are the closest that we can get to ag going out and actually growing a plant. It's it's the closest that we can get to a real hands-on, this is your real life application. Because for you, that's just reflection, right? You're teaching them how to reflect and improve. And for me, I'm teaching them a little bit of reflection, but also just like this is the people, this is how it works for everything you complain about for the rest of your life in government. This is how you could actually change it if you wanted to, and there is a chance. Like you saw some of your classmates or even you yourself change school policy. You could do that again. It'll take work, but you could do it again for the state or for the local community, So that's what I think is cool about projects.
Yeah. So that's all of our thoughts on projects. Like I said, we will come back for another episode to talk a little bit more about some other projects later. And if you want to see that episode, of course, go into the comments and say, we want that episode.
Yeah.
But until next time, my name's been Paul Davidson.
My name is, and Lord willing, will be Scott Norman.
And we've been to